Good morning, Hallowed Haven family. This is After Dawn, the show where we sit down and have a cup of coffee with the cast, crew, and creators behind Hallowed Haven Studios Productions. I'm Saul, and I'm joined by my co-host, Vironz.
Hello, I'm Vironz, and today we're talking about Hunter Wayfarer Season 2, Episode 1. In this episode, we felt a lot of emotional tension. Nothing terrible, nothing too heavy, but a lot of familial and romantic feelings between some of our characters, and some furthering of the romance between Rosanna and Arthur, while we also introduced our two new characters, Isabel and Piper. Honestly, I felt, like this episode was really good. I actually enjoyed the role-playing quite a bit. But my opinion is not the only one here today. What are your thoughts, Saul?
I also enjoyed the roleplay a lot. It was really good to be able to sit down and get to see Rosanna and Arthur back at it again, and getting to see how they interact not only just with each other but also with the two new players and the two new characters. And my opinions are also not the only ones that matter, as we are joined by the players for Rosanna and Arthur, Legacy and Scott, respectively. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back to the show, both of you. We're going to go ahead and start with the morning brew by asking both of you some questions about your personal experiences with the show and with elements from the show. What's it like getting back on camera, back into the roles of these characters after a little bit of time away from them?
It's interesting because I had to remember what Arthur was like, but then also sort of think about what I wanted to do with him over the course of the season, because I never intended him to be a static character where like he's the same at the beginning of the season as he is at the end of the season. So in the downtime, I decided that there were some improvements that he made when he was alone and thinking about everything that went on and like questioning his beliefs and practices. So it was interesting to be like, okay, I have to remember how he acted, how he talked, but I also have to remember that he's going to be slightly different based on his downtime. So it was great to like kind of play with that and step into that role. And, like BP picked up on some of it, like the messiness and things, because it was interesting it was fun to be able to present a side of Arthur that we had never really got to see. I had this whole like backstory thing that I wrote, then realized it was way more than I needed to because I'm a writer, and so I just like read a whole book about a character that I play one time, and stuff like the messiness when he's alone was in there. So it was kind of neat to be able to like bring out those aspects and show more of the character to everyone, but also being like remind them of who he is.
Yeah, and kind of the same thing with Rosanna. I was able to kind of strip back on some of that. Back in like season 1, she was super probably glass half full type of person who tried to like bring out the best in everybody, and I think that like her work and what she did during her downtime was so adamant in kind of how she behaved in the first session, where like I was able to still keep on to some of that innocence, but at the same time just be like, okay, well, our lives are kind of falling apart, and getting to kind of step in and play with a character that I haven't gotten to play with in a couple of months, and putting myself in the mindset of what would she have been up to, and how does that affect the type of person that she is? What habits did she pick up? What habits did she learn from the people that she works with? Which is how she got into maybe some things that she shouldn't have, and why she's been starting up some projects that she maybe shouldn't be starting up, and kind of digging right deep into that, and I can't wait to play with that even more.
Fair enough all around. What's it like playing with the new cast members? Last season we had two different players and characters, so now we have a new set of individuals. What's it like playing with Termite and Aubrey?
honestly, I think that it's a lot of fun getting to play with a couple of new people. Especially like we have a mortician and a god, like a hacker all around kind of like stoic character. Getting a chance to play with a new cast, like obviously we are missing the other two, at least I'm missing the other two, but having a chance to get something a little bit fresh and to be able to play with those dynamics a little bit. Audrey and Termite are fantastic, and I think that the group is going to have such a different dynamic than what it was season 1.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. There was definitely a feel with the way that the characters all kind of were with each other in the first season, and I think that we were all it was different, and there was like a different feeling amongst the characters and the players together when we were doing the show. And I think having this new dynamic, well, I also miss the other two, but I'm looking forward to the new style of the season, the way the show is going to go with these two different people, because we have there to some extent there's some similarities in the way that Termite and Audrey built their characters toward, like in stepping in where Victoria and Zephyr left. But there's similar, like you could see that there's some similarities between the characters, but there's differences, and those differences are, I think, the exciting part of where it's going to go from this point forward, and how things are going to be different. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, honestly, that's something I'm actually looking forward to as well, just to see that happen.
Same.
I'm pretty curious. What are like the playlists for Arthur and Rosanna like?
Oh no, the dreaded music question.
Nope.
Oh yes.
You had to know it was coming.
I should have been properly prepared. So the problem I have is that I, as a person, am more of an audiobooks and like YouTube videos that are like informative kind of guy, and I don't really listen to music so much. So creating the playlist for Arthur was actually a difficult task for me, which is interesting because back in the day when we had guests on After Dawn, everyone's like, oh, I make a playlist for the character and I listen to it, and that gets me in the mindset. And I'm like, nah, I read the character sheet, perhaps some like background stuff I've written or journal entries. I like read things. Music isn't really my deal. So the playlist for Arthur is very small, and I tried my best to have it match kind of where I felt he's feeling right now. And the last playlist for the last season, I did like, I tried to create a playlist from songs that I knew that was like a progression of his emotional state. And this time they're all kind of where his mind is at with everything going on in his life. So there's a bunch of different songs that kind of relate to the way he's feeling, which are some upbeat and some a little bit downbeat kind of thing. But it's only like 8 or 9 songs.
Yeah, and Rosanna's playlist is definitely like it's a peek into where her mind is at any current state. Like there's a lot of creating the playlist from season 1 to season 2. Season 1 has a lot more upbeat and like happy-go-lucky music, where she like it kind of pulls into this. It's this young woman who's coming into the abilities that she has, and now the season 2 playlist is kind of like a step down and a bit of a 180 from that. There's still some of that happy music where you can see like she's trying her best to keep her positivity, but there's also some there's a lot of music that plays into like isolation and playing into like kind of like the loneliness of like what she was feeling her time away from the people that she cared about the most, and especially seeing as like the one person in her life that she could depend on more than anybody passing away on her. A lot of the music is reflective on her emotions of dealing with grief and dealing with like loss of people that she cares about constantly coming up and kind of smacking her in the face. So the playlist is a nice mix of upbeat happiness, down kind of like isolation, and then like a bit more of that like, but also I'm dealing with some personal things too.
And so this question is more directed towards Scott, as we've already gotten your answer, Legacy, but as we're going back to playing a World of Darkness game, what is your favorite product from the World of Darkness game line?
Ooh, how long is this episode? I'm just kidding.
As long as it needs to be.
Those who are familiar with the Discord know that I have opinions on certain products that are created in the World of Darkness world, and certain companies that make products within the World of Darkness world. But
Yeah.
I actually will say that Hunter. So this version of Hunter I actually like quite a bit. But Hunter the Vigil First Edition was, prior to Hunter the Reckoning 5th, was my favorite. Originally I started with Vampire, and then I played Mage, both of the mages, the earlier Mage and then the later Mage, and I was like, okay, these are fine. At that time, Vampire was still Vampire the Masquerade. I guess it was second. Was still like my favorite. And then I stumbled across Hunter the Vigil First Edition and went, here we are. This is more my jam. And I like that quite a bit. Second edition, I'll refrain from giving opinions on it, but it wasn't my favorite. And then Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition came out. And there are some strengths and weaknesses to the system. There's some weaknesses that I really wish they had kind of worked out a little bit better. But overall, it would have to be my favorite, mostly because I'm also the guy who watched Supernatural from season 1 onward. Like, I'm that guy. And I'm Team Van Helsing. So I like monsters existing in the world is great. And it's cool to like play games where monsters are doing cool things. But I like the idea of the humans who don't necessarily have super powers where they can fly or turn into darkness or some other thing, and yet they have to stand and face at the darkness and go, okay, well, we have to help humanity because we can't just use our power to turn back time or something. We just have to stand here with our pickaxes or our hands that can punch ghosts out of people and do what we can do and likely die, but we're doing it because if we don't, who will, right? And so Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition, of all the products right now, Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition, top marks for me. I did the LARP Vampire the Masquerade for like 7 or 8 months, maybe 9 months back in college that's how I got introduced to the World of Darkness. And I went from being the lowest vampire to the prince. It was awesome.
That is awesome.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was crazy because all I did was just like never give out of character information to anybody, and so I just became the mysterious guy who seemed to just get things done because no one knew out of character what I was doing. Like they couldn't, that metagaming problem where people know something out of character and they accidentally use it. I just knew that was a problem, so I didn't share anything with anyone out of character, and so no one had any idea what I was up to. And eventually, I became Prince. It was awesome.
Sounds pretty cool to me. I would like to hear more about that story later.
Later, yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, how long do we have here? Because I could go on for a while. But in the end, when stumbling across Hunter, I was like, okay, this is more my favorite because of that thing, like I said.
How would you both say that how you compare and contrast to your characters?
I've got a joke, but I know that joke will get me yelled at, so I'm not going to say it.
Who's going to yell at you, though?
BP, Scott, Solomon, and about anybody who knows what my sense of humor really is like.
Mm-hmm.
No, I definitely think that there are a lot of differences and even like similarities between Legacy, the player, and Rosanna, the character, down from the way that we look and dress, up to like Rosanna is a woman who has a lot of complicated layers to her, and a lot of defense mechanisms, one of which she finally let her guard down and talk about in the middle of a grocery store. But me myself, I'm a bit more of an open book than what Rosanna is, and I'm the type of person that, like, if you aren't talking to me directly, I'll probably just sit there and listen to you and give you a couple like uh-huhs and and then you'll I'm not as outgoing as Rosanna is, but I do know how to hold a conversation like she does. So kind of different. She's a lot more not charismatic, but knows how to talk to people a little bit better than I do, and that's always such a difficult thing to untap, right? You are playing somebody who is miles smarter than you are, or miles more charismatic than you are, and you have to tap into that, and it makes for an interesting dynamic of play. But alongside like some of the obviously more physical differences, I also think that like her curiosity and mine, like I pull a lot of like her curiosity about certain elements, like the ghosts and like knowing the future, wanting to know about like magic and like why things happen and why the world around her works the way that it works. A lot of that is stemmed from back when I used to just dive deep into like weird occult things that may or may not actually exist, and I would sit there and make notes, and when I was creating Rosanna, wanted to play into that aspect, so that's where we kind of lay similar.
Arthur and I are exactly the same. I'm just kidding. No. No, actually, so there's Arthur is a character that I made. There are obviously some similarities. Like there's definitely some aspects of me that show up in Arthur. But then there's also things that I obviously was like, okay, how do I emulate this kind of thing? So Arthur is a religious guy, and while I am not so much, I'm more of a spiritualist type guy. I know what those people look like because some people know this, and I've shared it with people, but I haven't shared it as to the wider audience of Hallowed Haven Studios. But the Church of the Rising Star was this. I created that because I was like, he's going to be in a cult, and I created it for BP to use, and she took it and added more layers to it and added some other things. But the general structure of how it works and like how the structure of organization works and stuff came from me, which I mixed from my personal experiences with being LDS for a large portion of my life, and mixing it with actual cults that exist, and my knowledge about them, and then from science fiction, because I pulled from Strange in a Strange Land to sort of figure out some layers to it. Also being a Freemason, like I just had a lot of sources to pull from, which made me able to create the complex mix of very strange religious beliefs that Arthur has, while being ostensibly feeling like he's empowered by God. Because I know a lot of religious people, and I know how they act and think and say. So in season 1, the way that I had Arthur in the beginning was basically emulating those people, and not quite as open as I am personally about people. And also he was dumber than me because of his restrictions and his beliefs. Like he believes certain things, so therefore he doesn't open himself to other opinions on particular subjects. So a perfect example is in the first season was when there was a thing and he's like, okay, we kill it because that's what you do when you're a zealot. And Rosanna's like, no, maybe we can help it. Helping, like, that did not occur to Arthur, but it absolutely would have occurred to me as Scott. So there's some differences, but then I pull in my own feelings and interests in things like the occult for his knowledge and his like the perks and edges he has were related to like cool things that like I think could exist in reality, and appreciate their attempt to simulate some like spiritualistic structures in our world into the gameplay. So I pulled from those as his abilities because I wanted to play with them and have fun with them in that imaginary sense. So it was kind of cool. So there's some parts of me that you'll find in Arthur and the way that he interacts with people, especially now that he's showing more of an openness, that you'll also find with me as a person. But as far as his ability to like try to make friends with everyone, that's totally me. But his religious zealotry is absolutely not me at all.
I very much understand that. I'm around a lot of people who are part of LDS and have also left LDS.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see that. I definitely see that a lot in Arthur.
Yeah, and he still believes, right? Like he still believes in some things because he can't not believe in some things because he doesn't have any other thing to believe in. But he also has to not believe in things that he knows aren't true. So it's really complicated for him to have those thought processes. Me, I'm totally fine. I'm no complicated thought processes. You know, this is what I know, and I'm gonna keep changing it as people provide me with new information. Try to provide Arthur new information. It's gonna take him a while to process it.
Yeah. Do you guys have any like thoughts or concerns or theories of like what might await the cell going forward?
Werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
It's always werewolves.
Well,
Just no, anyway. Sorry, just had to throw out like that.
Damn it.
I think a lot of it is, I think Arthur brought it up in episode 1 of this season. We've focused so much of our time and energy on ghosts and wraiths. We have our cells a bit rusty when it comes to the other
Literally everything else.
Yeah. So I think a big curveball that we are going to face is, well, what happens if we come across like Fae?
Mm-hmm.
None of us know what the fuck to do with Fae, right? And then on top of that, like, okay, like cool, werewolves can really mess up our minds if they start to change and shift right in front of us. How do we deal with that if we come across a werewolf? Are we prepared to fight vampires? What happens if a vampire tries to attack us? But we're super prepared with ghosts. So if it's just another ghost, got this one in the bag, right?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead, Lacey. You're still
no, you go.
I mean, yeah, as far as I was just sort of joking about that, but I mean, I think that what we're going to encounter is more stuff. Like last season, we were just kind of on the run, and we were encountering things that we were encountering as we went, and it kind of linked directly to what had happened to us in the beginning. I think that this season that the characters are going to encounter like the stuff that we didn't talk about with their past as an issue coming up, and addressing those side things like our maybe potentially even our touchstones that we didn't address in the first season. So I think there's going to be a lot more of the focus on not necessarily the monsters that we encounter, but like a deeper dive into us and our strengths and our weaknesses, and that's what I think they're going to encounter this season.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to see, because now Rosanna's having interesting visions of screaming women and crosses and touching magic, I'm wondering if the cell's gonna come across like magic, like mages.
Mm-hmm.
And if so, how are we going to interpret those mages? Especially where in season 1, especially, she talked about this a lot, like her involvement with not her religious beliefs, but what she has access to. Her involvement with that is going to obviously deepen even more with the medium and the oracle stuff. So if we're gonna see other oracles, or if we're gonna see like mages or maybe like psychics, stuff like that, like that is going to be an interesting to touch as well if we end up touching that.
Yeah, it's that aspect I think is going to be very complicated for Arthur if we encounter that, because he already questions whether or not he and Rosanna are no longer non-supernatural, essentially. And so if you get people who can do magic, are they just the same, or are they some monster, right? So I think that'll be interesting to see if we encounter it.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to be so cut and dry
No.
No.
Hence the strengths and weaknesses, you know?
Yeah. So I have a question for both of you. Have you ever had trouble getting an animal to like you, or seen someone who just couldn't get an animal's approval no matter how hard they try?
Yes.
Yeah.
Art reflects life in Arthur's case. No, I have the dogs that I love very dearly, but I have also had pets that like just didn't care about me. And I have also had friends whose pets just didn't care about me. And so I've absolutely encountered like a dog that just doesn't want to be my friend no matter what I do. And a lizard that's happily coexisting in their space and never interacting with me. Meanwhile, whenever somebody else, like my wife, approached the cage, it was like, "Oh, hi, how's it going? I want to climb out. Can you hold me?" And meanwhile, it was just like, "Oh, you again." Like I absolutely have had that.
Yeah. I don't know. Dogs like me. Are imitating life, I guess. But I've definitely been in like situations too where it's like, it's not that they don't like me, it's that they're shy and, you know, do weird things like climb backwards up the stairs when you try to give them a treat.
I feel like I should say my dog has genuinely done that to other people.
Somebody's dog did that to me a couple months back.
Yep.
But I love dogs and I love animals, and I don't know. I've got a weird cult of turkeys that just appear on my porch every year.
A cult of turkeys?
Yeah, like there's like these, so it's fun. I have like, I call them breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. But it's this little family of turkeys, and every year they just appear on my front porch, and I don't know why. Especially because my dog is the type of dog that likes to think that he can hunt anything. And so he'll start barking at them, but then they'll look at him like unbothered, and just I'll go out and, okay, I know it's because I feed them, but you know, it's only like a couple times a year they appear on my porch, so.
And they show up in robes, and they bring candles, and there's the whole thing.
Exactly.
And they start gobbling in like chanting tones, but
And
just
then-
Gobbling in Latin.
And then for some reason, it's weird. This giant entity crawls
It's
up
you.
from like the grass and like, yeah.
And it just holds his hands out for like bread and just goes like, "See."
Oh, no. Nah, but I definitely have friends who like, you can bring them near any animal and they like the animal just looks unbothered and like does not want to interact with them. But I have friends that are just like, oh, you bring them around and dogs love them, cats love them, colt turkeys love them. Like, it's fine.
I've been bitten by a friend's dog when the first time I met it for no reason whatsoever. So I know exactly what Gozer's up to. I've been there.
Fair enough. So I think it is time to go ahead and start getting into our cups here. Scott, I have an important question for you.
Oh, okay.
Arthur talked about dying and taking a number of monsters with him. Does he actually have plans to survive what's coming, or is that just kind of how he sees it happening?
Literally, Arthur doesn't think he's going to survive ever. If anyone reads, if ever the journal entries from season 1 get posted anywhere, every episode Arthur was sort of like, I don't know if we're gonna make it through this. And his last journal entry from the season was straight up like, I may have to kill us all, or if not me, then definitely Zephyr kill us all, because we're really pushing that boundary on what is human and what is not human. So Arthur is really pretty much at this point kind of thinking that he's going to be destroyed at any moment. And that stems from sort of his fatalistic view with like his religious ideas, but also because like one of the aspects of the character is he has the drawback, the flaw of existential dread from the look that the cult leader gave him when he was escaping the cult. And so he actually legitimately is still worried that the speaker's reach can get him anywhere. And so either he's only surviving because the speaker can't actually find him, or because he actually is the righteous hand of God, and whenever it's his time, then he'll go wherever he's supposed to go, wherever God has determined him to go. So Arthur legitimately does think that he is going to die at some point, and he just doesn't know when that is going to come, and he doesn't worry about it because he believes that like there's a time for everything, and so he will, whenever that is his time, then he is going to go, and he'll just go because he's not going to fight it or anything. He's just gonna be like, okay, this is my time. I'm going now. But before he does that, he wants to make sure that he atones for what he's done as far as like convincing people to join this cult, where eventually they got, sucked up into whatever thing the speaker was doing, and also make sure that Rosanna and whomever else is part of his cell is not taken with him, because he has the power to stop that from happening. He legitimately believes that.
Alrighty then. I actually now have a question for Rosanna. What all kinds of new powers is Rosanna getting into? Because we saw her have some sort of like prophecy at the end of the session, so now I'm just curious as to what all weird things she's going to have access to. If you can just say without spoiling things.
Well, it seems like her visions are starting to, and the like last season when she was just starting to kind of get a grip on like, okay, I can have these small visions. It seems like they are getting to be a bit more detailed in not necessarily their meaning, but like how deep she's going into them. She's still trying to kind of discover like what she isn't able to do. She discovered that she now has the power to summon weapons. Apparently she's a lot better with the dogs than she thought she was. The visions, the getting the talk to the ghosts, definitely the more that she starts to accept that she's not a normal like mortal, that she's not a normal person, it seems like the crazier her ability seems to become. in season 1 when she was having doubts of like, oh no, I'm still a normal person. This is just weird things that are happening to me purely out of circumstance, partially out of PTSD. And then slowly getting to meet like SPCs that kind of like let her know like, no, what you're going through is completely real and happens to people, but not getting any of the answers of like, well, what is that? And I feel like the more that she is learning about herself, the deeper those powers are going to progress. If she's going to get anything else out of it, only time will tell. But as far as she's convinced, Arthur might be the righteous hand of God, but she's able to touch magic and not have it blow up in her face. So that's pretty powerful too.
Yeah, that is pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, Scott,
Mm-hmm.
with Arthur's downtime, he looks like he's been struggling with that cell. When was the last time he actually like took time to take care of himself?
Oh, Arthur does not understand the concept of self-care. He doesn't. So the whole time, there were so many things I wanted to do with him during the downtime, but then like BP was like, these are some things that you can't do. So then I was like, okay, so he can't do any of the things I wanted to do. And then she was like, okay, well, he could have done some things related to that. And I was like, okay, then fine. Then he did those things. But no, the whole time he was obsessively watching the other cult and like really trying to like the cult has or a similar branch cult exists that does report back to the same speaker that he practically lived with at the compound in California. So he found out that the speaker has a wider net of people that he knew nothing about, which is a surprise to him considering that his job in the cult was to go out and proselytize essentially. So to find out that he was finding people and bringing them back to California to live in the compound with all of the other cultists essentially was like to find out that there was another one and they're like a completely different feel, but the same core beliefs and report back to the same person really messed with his mind in season 1. And so the whole downtime, all he was doing was basically staying in the RV and like smoking packs of cigarettes and then watching them obsessively and taking notes. And then like, that was it. Like, that and like kind of doing basic workouts and learning how to control his whole, I can punch ghosts thing. That's it. That's all he did. And he obsessed over it the whole time because of his desire to A, stop the speaker and B, rescue the people that he put there. So because that's his whole thing. Atonement is his drive. So he didn't have any self-care whatsoever. They're lucky he was actually like showering during that whole downtime.
I feel like Rosanna might have actually hurt him. Possibly, just possibly, if he didn't shower.
Yeah,
Just a little bit.
And it's also distinctly possible that he showered right before going to see Rosanna, and that was the first time he'd showered during the entire time.
Gross.
So
I mean, it's possible. I haven't quite worked that part out yet, but that's the feels, right? Like
I feel like there would be some some form of just like in the know of like, this is the first time you've showered in months, isn't it?
Yeah, there would definitely be some signs that he didn't shower for 2 months, right?
the smell would just radiate in the RV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And everything.
So
yeah,
gross.
and he supposedly he went into like some bars and observed them from a distance and stuff. So he obviously got out into public during that time, which means he would have showered based on the simple idea of like having to not stand out. So if you're like the stinky guy in the corner, people will notice kind of feel,
Yeah.
So
Something cleanliness, something closer to godliness or something like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's also habits that he has that he hasn't broken because he doesn't feel the need to, like waking up super early and reading the paper kind of thing. That he obviously wouldn't have broke. So I'm sure he did actually shower and like brush his teeth and stuff because those would just be things he would do without thinking about it.
So with that being said, like how did Rosanna feel like without the cell there during that downtime? What happened to her?
Oh, I mean, Rosanna's the type of person to not stop once she gets really into something. A part of her backstory is she actually holds like 2 doctorates at a very young age. So her deep dive into wanting to discover more about the world, like the real world that's around her, led her into some very interesting paths. Obviously, she's still like tried to like go out and have like a social life and try to like go out and meet people. But there are parts of her that also just shut herself inside back to like what she used to do and stay in her dark room and just be on her computer all day and like help out. We'll probably go into a little bit more, but she has that connection with Piper, where they know each other from a couple of like the chat rooms that they used to frequent. And I can't wait to kind of go into a little bit more detail of how they know each other. But she's definitely continued working on her main business and her 2 side gigs, both of those being 2 very different versions of her online personalities. I'm not going to get into much detail about what those 2 internet personalities are. I'm sure many people can draw conclusions as to one of them at least.
Oh.
No, what are you talking about?
If
Never.
you can't, then you haven't been paying attention.
I am pure as the undriven snow.
But she mostly like kept herself busy. She was supposed to the whole point of her because she stayed in Florida once the cell, like, we had it written up that the cell eventually did make it to Florida. A couple of them just stuck around and a couple of them went off on their own. So she stuck around Florida mostly, and just made more money and was able to go deeper into her occult research and practice her bow skills in peace. And it was a social it was a very socially heavy but also lonely couple of months for her.
Fair enough. So I have a question for Legacy. Is Rosanna going to be keeping Gozer, or is she going to just try to find him a new home?
We'll have to see. She's a little bit split right now. She loves Gozer. Gozer is in one way, shape, or form an attachment of Victoria. And so there's every part of her that wants to keep him, but there's also every part of her that's like, I don't want to see this dog get more traumatized if one of us goes. So it's a bit up in the air. That is definitely a bridge that we're gonna have to cross when she meets with Dietrich's, to kind of like talk about things.
Fair enough.
How exactly are Rosanna and Arthur feeling about the 2 new members of the cell?
Arthur doesn't trust them per se, but he also recognizes the necessity. Well, he kind of trusts them. He recognizes the necessity of hunters needing to work together for various reasons, and that's why I did the thing where I wanted Arthur and Piper to converse, and we played the semi-verbal chess match game thing where we were asking questions and giving answers without actually providing any information whatsoever. Because they're hunters, and so they're on the same path as far as he's concerned, which is destroying things. But he doesn't know their strengths or weaknesses yet, so he doesn't know how much he can rely on them. So that was sort of where I think he wanted to explore it. Even though he was the one that technically called in Aubrey's character, the Izzy, he doesn't know anything about what Izzy's capable of, aside from they needed her expertise to know more about what happened to Victoria. So sort of iffy on them right now, and especially because he also thinks that he and Rosanna are potentially supernatural. So, if they are hunters, they might just go, oh, hey, you guys are quarry now. So, we'll give you a head start. So yeah, that's where he's at with them at the moment.
And Rosanna, I mean, like Rosanna and Piper, like I said, they have a history. They've worked together in the past. So she's slightly more not trusting, but understanding of Piper's situation and like what she is able to do. Like she's seen firsthand what Piper's capabilities are. Isabel, she is trying to kind of like put feelers out, considering how different they are from one another, but how similar they are to each other as well. She's trying to just kind of like put the feelers out, see what's out there. Somebody had made the joke that that Isabel and Rosanna are just gonna give like Wednesday and what's her name, Enid vibes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to see what happens with that. But she's a bit more open to them joining and like helping out. Especially because like the skill set that both of them bring are just so necessary to what they're trying to do as a group. But she also is like scared that, well, what happens? She in every regard, she thinks that Arthur is safe. She thinks that that the real trouble is going to be what happens when they find out what I am. Because Arthur, in her opinion, is still relatively normal. Like he's able to channel strengths from things that that she doesn't know about, but Arthur is still normal in her eyes. In her eyes, she's the monster that if they wanted to could all turn on a dime and just take down with no problems. So there's a bit of fear, but a bit of excitement.
A little bit of that risk and thrill. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Scott.
Yo.
What all kinds of food does Arthur not know of, since it seems like his main cuisine has been, like, McDonald's and such for the past several months?
Well, okay. So the story is that Arthur has actually never had to make food for himself. But maybe when he was a little younger, when he was in college per se, but those of us that went to college know that college students don't really know how food works. And so when he kind of became his own person and had to like experience the greater world, that's when he joined a cult and immediately got married and has never had to go shopping or buy groceries. And even when he was in the cult, like they grew a lot of their stuff. So he doesn't know about a lot of the world's cuisines aside from what he's maybe seen on a menu at a nicer restaurant or something back when he had lots of money and was going to hotel restaurants all the time. But he doesn't exactly know what those are. Like he could say like something of something and he'd be like, cool, that's a steak thing. Sounds delicious. So yeah, so the moral of the story is a lot. Various cheeses, various vegetables. He would absolutely not understand certain things like kimchi. Yeah, lots of foods he knows nothing about.
So wow, they just take him out to like a mall that has all kinds of different cuisines in it. He's just gonna be floored.
Yeah, and he's only gonna eat Cheerios.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's a guy I know who when when we were having a dinner at one of our Masonic meetings, we were having our dinner. I was the one in charge of ordering the various different foods, and I chose to order some more authentic Mexican food for the dinner that night. And this person told me that he's like in his 60s, late 60s, because he had retired a few years ago. He was like, I've never had Mexican food before. And so I was blown away. And that was kind of where I get that idea for Arthur from. Like, there are legitimately people who eat like stew and like meat and potatoes, and that's it for, 70 years of their life.
That honestly floors me a little bit. Just like thinking that you don't like you have only eaten like what is classified as like American food, so just like hamburger and like a cheeseburger and maybe bacon, and like that's it. Or like
some
for
chili.
like your major
I could not
meals.
live like that.
No, that's what I'm like especially in a place like Portland, right, where I live, where there's basically every kind of cuisine you could possibly imagine, like around the city. Like, there's no reason you couldn't eat Lebanese food, for example, or something. Like, it's there. And for that person to be like, I've spent nearly 70 years of my life and I've never had anything other than American food, blew me away.
Yeah,
And
that's crazy.
So I channeled that for Arthur.
That's the true horror right there.
Yep.
It's called personal horror for a reason.
Yep. Alrighty, well, I think it is time to go ahead and move on to spilling the tea, where we're all able to ask questions about the what the fuck moments of the episode, and some more interesting questions about what might be to come. And of course, our interviewees are free to ask questions of each other or of us, or possibly to even suggest questions for future episodes with other people. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with the question that everyone's thinking. When are Arthur and Rosanna just going to kiss already?
I see that. I see the legacy's waiting for me to answer, maybe?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a solid question, and everyone is thinking the right way. Just kidding. I don't actually know. And I think that Arthur and Rosanna have, well, at least for Arthur, he's been close a couple of times. But there's some factors that step in the way for him to do that, which are both role playing characteristics and also mechanical characteristics on the sheet. But in our most recent outing, like, I opened up with the fact, because it's been so long since they've seen each other, that Arthur sort of accidentally let loose that he finds Rosanna attractive, and then when we had the moment where Rosanna made her confession, now Arthur's like I might ruin this person, like, thought process for him. Like, she's never been in a like relationship. This is not a good situation. This might go very badly if I do this wrong. So now he has to think hard about what to do about this situation.
Well, on that, I'm gonna ask is what was his like thought process when Rosanna did say that that she wasn't in a romantic relationship with her pen pal?
So that was the thing. That was one thing that was kind of holding Arthur back, is that he thought she was in a romantic relationship with that person, and he was like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to get you to the person that you love, because Arthur is trying to rescue the person that he loves. And so he absolutely understands this feeling that she would have about wanting to be close to that person, because he wants to be close to that person. But he also, he's also has some weird sort of history with not being monogamous, as it were, both in a way that was sanctioned by the cult and in a way that maybe wasn't necessarily sanctioned by the cult. So he's not necessarily like, oh, I'm one person all the time kind of guy, because he has multiple wives in the cult. But he understands the feeling. So he was like, okay, I'm going to get her to that person and like get her that love and happiness. And then he's like, oh, that's not what's going on there. That makes things different with all of this. And so in his mind, it's like, uh-oh. So wait, because oh, she's with that person now. It's all done. It's all taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. She's with the person she wants to be with, and all is well. And then that's not what's going on, which puts the ball right back in the court of, wait, is this a thing that's happening then between them? Is it not just a me not being able to control my passions kind of situation? Maybe I've been reading this wrong the whole time. So that's what was going through his mind at that point.
And with Rosanna, I mean, like, she having never been in something more romantic than maybe like a couple of like flirty text messages back and forth with somebody, her real first involvement with like more complicated feelings towards another person is probably with Arthur, because they have gotten so close with one another, in a way that most coworkers don't get with one another. And so she's having some like, I could reach up and grab you and just kiss you right now, and it will be, it'll be what it is. But at the same time, you have somebody who I have actively helped you connect with back at home. And as much as she would like, she wants to explore her relationship with Arthur a little bit more, I think she's just afraid that if she does, that he's not going to reciprocate those feelings because he has a wife. And she doesn't quite understand, like, her whole thing is, I've got like about 1,000,004 layers to me because I don't know how to quite get a grip on how I'm feeling, and now somebody's bringing up feelings that I've never felt before because I was just so honed in on my work and obsessing over getting a good degree and getting a good job and getting on my own and taking care of myself, that now somebody's kind of like cracked open something and she's like, uh-oh. And even worse, it's with somebody who, what they do is not safe. They put themselves into very dangerous situations. So what happens if I start to like really, really let myself go in front of this person and then something bad happens to one of us? And I think that that's kind of what's holding her back, is she wants him to approach her because she, first of all, wants to make sure that she's doing things correctly. Into the best comfort levels for both of them. And she also wants to make sure that that is a calculated risk that is worth taking. Which is why when he responded with a, well, what are you waiting for? When she said, I don't want to be with someone who's going to waste my time. It's because they don't know how much time they have left. Which is both a defense mechanism and a kick to the head.
Yeah, so short answer is it's Facebook complicated.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is like a very almost Shakespeare-like romance.
I mean, yeah, to some extent it is. There's some complications for either side. Like if they continue not doing it and then one of them dies, the other one has to like deal with that feeling and also regret of not taking advantage of the situation. But then at the same time, if they do get involved, they might just, one of them dies and then they have to deal with the fact that they've lost that person. So it is very complicated. Plus Arthur is afraid he has to kill Rosanna at some point. and he doesn't want to.
I honestly, I kind of imagine that's the fear of both of yours, is that you might have to kill the other because you. I don't know. From what you were saying earlier, is that you both kind of see each other as a supernatural, and the other might not be.
Oh no, Arthur absolutely 100% believes that he is also supernatural. Like, as far as his perspective is that he thinks that both he and Rosanna are supernatural. He just doesn't know what type of supernatural Rosanna is. And one thing that came up in season 1 was this idea that a monster is what they do and not who they are. That came out during the season, and Arthur kind of latched onto that idea and ran with it for a while because it was a way for him to accept what was going on with him as a supernatural. Because while Arthur, right, he has his religious convictions and believes that he is doing the right thing as far as the religious side goes. Like in the battle between heaven and hell, he's on the heaven side. But he also recognizes that what he can do is not what people should be able to do as far as regular people are concerned. So either he's an avenging archangel, essentially, in his mind, or whatever is giving him this power is not something that he should be tapping into, and he's crossing the boundary into being something else. So he believes that he's not entirely human, and maybe if it is from a dark path, that it will be a point where someone will have to take him out, like some hunters will have to take him down because he can't control himself anymore. Much like the Victoria being able to open the veil was a thing that was kind of beneficial for them in the fight with the ghosts. It's also not a very good thing. So he's conflicted on like whether or not he is like a supernatural that needs to be destroyed or not. But he has no question that he's not human. And so if Rosanna needs to be destroyed, he also needs to be destroyed in his mind. And so that's where he's at. So like if he has to destroy her, then his immediate response will be then, okay, at what point do they destroy me? And he only thinks that he'd have to destroy her if she went too far. And if she were to go too far, it would be, in his mind, his responsibility to destroy her and not anyone else's. He would not want the other two to try. In fact, he might end up destroying them if they tried to destroy her, essentially. It's his job, not theirs.
Mm-hmm. They have, and I don't know if the 0.5s will ever come up, but we had our 0.5 session for season 2 together, where there was an agreement that Rosanna set in place of, if I go too far and I can't be brought back down, kill me. Yeah.
And Arthur absolutely believes that it is his job to take her down if she goes too far.
Mm-hmm.
But then by destroying her, what point is he too far? You see, so it's complicated, because then if he falls too far in love with her, as it were, and doesn't keep himself in check, if it comes to that time, can he? Right, and that becomes a problem.
Yeah, I remember working on the 0.5s and just hearing that, and we're like, that is depressing. It's a very sad thought to have.
Sad thoughts in a White Wolf game or a World of Darkness game? Never.
I was gonna say, isn't this a game of personal horror? Isn't that supposed to be the point?
I mean, yeah, it is, but I feel like, sometimes you can have happy, good vibes.
Yeah, but for them, in the situation that they find themselves, I mean, Rosanna is completely open to the fact that she herself might not be like a normal person, but she's gonna try her damn best to like not turn into what they've seen. But she's also very realistic in the fact of, I don't know if I truly have that control, and if I don't want to be the cause of somebody's pain. I don't want to be what kills an innocent just because I lost whatever control I have, because in her mind, everything that she could possibly become is either in the realm of like a vampire, where she believes that like, while every supernatural has their good, there's definitely that bad, and she's afraid that if she turns to that bad, she's either going to end up like a vampire, or she's going to end up something worse if it doesn't have like that specific grounding. Especially to where she has these abilities to just kind of like talk to the dead and like see the future, and like the bow's ability of like, if she wants to destroy something enough, she can literally rip them into any other dimension that she has no clue what happens to them at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So she's very realistic, but very hopeful in the fact that they never have to cross that bridge.
Yeah, and Hunter the Reckoning rules are written with the idea like there's some abilities, some edges that you can take for as a hunter that helps you hunt the supernatural. And you can look at it from the one perspective of Hunter being like, oh, you have these abilities that allow you to look a vampire in the face and go, yeah, whatever, I take you down. I thwart your ability and I, crush your larynx with my fist because I have hands free kind of thing on my special abilities. And you can look at it that way, like it turns you into, the older version of the Hunter the Reckoning kind of hunters where you were awakened and you did things. But then there's if you look at it from a different perspective, it's that thing that Arthur struggles with, the idea that the more of those abilities you get, the less human you are and the more like the things in the world of darkness you become. And so that's the angle that he's looking at it because of his religious faithful conviction, right? Because that's his creed. So, and because I started him as a cult leader and not like a priest, like an actual like Catholic priest or something.
Yeah, Rosanna is very much in the boat of like, I have so many questions because, a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years ago, the world was just like plain and like simple, and like there was none of this extra complicated crap that I had to bear witness to. And then now all of a sudden I'm not only bearing witness to this complicated stuff, but I'm diving headfirst into try to get a better understanding of it. She relies on the materials of the world around her, books and like in her tablets and her computers and her cell phones and everything to kind of be able to fight that fight. But now she's finding that with the books and the knowledge also comes like, maybe there is no such thing as a 100% normal person. Like maybe everybody's got something that once they open themselves up to it, everybody's a little bit supernatural. Because like I said, in her opinion, Arthur is still very much a normal person. Arthur's also got some abilities that could kill her because one of his abilities did hurt her season 1. And with Victoria, she was able to rip open the veil very easily. So maybe there are such things as mortals, but maybe nobody's quite normal. And she wants to get a better understanding and a better viewpoint of that. Why her creed is inquisitive, but her what's it called?
Drive.
Her drive is curiosity. Especially now that she knows that the people that she works with, especially now that she's getting the vibe that Isabel maybe isn't the most normal either. It's that curiosity is there really any such thing as a normal person? And finding that maybe that is a bit more complicated than a simple yes or no.
All right. Do you have any questions for each other, or possibly for us, or for our other players for the future?
I want to know more about the backstories of the other characters, since Termite was like, I'm not going to answer any questions. So I guess I have to watch a 0.5 whenever I can access it at some point in the future.
I guess you will.
Yeah.
But no, I find them to be mysterious, and hopefully over the course of the season we'll get more of them. So I don't have any questions right now, but I'm most curious to know like what their stories are, because they jumped into the season and they got to catch up to us in XP, and so like they have to have history, like they have to. So I'm curious to know that history.
Yeah, I'm super curious. My main question is for Isabel, and that's what the fuck vibe did Rosanna pick up on, right? Like what's going on with that?
What was with that chill?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is going on there? Yeah. Maybe it's just that aura thing, right? The uncanny aura or whatever it is.
Maybe it's something different.
Yeah, we'll have to find out. Or maybe it was just something that BP threw in, and even Aubrey doesn't know what that was all about.
Yeah, BP's really good at that. Also, yeah, here's a question for BP when she ever gets on one of these. What the fuck, BP?
We'll be sure to ask BP with that exact intonation.
Yeah.
I'll clip it and I will send it.
She gets that from me at least once a week whenever Wayfarer's happening. Random vision that sends Rosanna into an immediate panic. What the fuck, BP? But that one's a personal one. That one, you ask her that, she'll 100% know who that one's from.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Well, I think that is a good place to call it there. So, for everyone listening, thank you all for listening. These episodes are dropped Thursdays at noon for the $5 plus tier. They're released to the public 1 month later, so think about subscribing so you can be up to date with the talk news for Hallowed Haven Studios. I'm Sol, and I'm joined by, once again, by Vironz.
Yep, have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.